Today we're looking at the 15 Capital One rules that you need to know about before applying for their cards. A lot of these are not official and they're based off data points and people's experiences. Big favorite before we dive into everything is to give this a thumbs up to help with the algorithm. If you know something that might benefit, then share this with them. Starting off with the 48-month pooled rule. This is brand new and the reason for this video. It also depends on the card. For the Capital One Venture One Rewards credit card, you're not eligible if you got a new card member bonus for this card, the standard, or the top level in the past 48 months. For the Capital One Venture Rewards credit card, it's only itself or the top level. For the Capital One Venture X Rewards credit card, it's 48 months, but only for itself, so the same card. Given this, the optimal strategy is to work your way up the ladder. That way you can get all 3 intro bonuses. Starting at the bottom with the no annual fee card, you're looking at 20,000 bonus miles after 500 in spend in the first 3 months. This is going to be the standard offer, but sometimes they have elevated ones. For the middle and top cards, they have the same standard offer. 75k bonus miles after 4,000 in spend in the first 3 months. One has a $95 annual fee while the other is at $395. Like in most other cards, the minimum spending clock starts when you get approved, not when you physically get the card. Note that with the $395 annual fee Capital One Venture X Rewards credit card, you do get up to $300 as an annual travel credit for bookings on Capital One Travel. You also get 10,000 miles as an anniversary bonus every card member anniversary. It also comes with Priority Pass as well as Capital One Lounge access. If you travel at least once or twice a year, it generally makes sense. On the other hand, if you're a student or you're not traveling for a bit, then consider the former. Like with everything, run the numbers for your situation and how you value things. A link to our calculator down below, or it should pop up if you search Venture X, worth it, AskSebby. One obvious question is whether you can apply for that lower annual fee card and then upgrade to that higher one when you're ready to travel. This brings us to number 2, upgrade rules related to Visa and MasterCard. This seems to be very specific to Capital One since other issuers don't have this problem. So you cannot upgrade or downgrade between payment networks. You can go from Visa to Visa, MasterCard to MasterCard, but not between the two. The core question becomes what type of card you have. For example, for the Capital One Venture Rewards credit card, before it was Visa, but in April 2024, they switched to MasterCard. This can change in the future obviously, but at the moment, it means you can't upgrade from the mid-level to that higher level unless you had the card from a while ago. Speaking of which, there are a lot of standard upgrade rules that you also see of other issuers that apply here as well. There's 2 main ones. The first one is that you're not eligible for an upgrade until the account is at least 12 months old, and this is for new accounts. This is due to their interpretation of the Card Act, where you're not allowed to increase interest rates and fees within the first 12 months of a new account. The other one is minimum limits. Visa Infinite for Capital One cards have a minimum credit limit of $10,000. In order to upgrade, you need to be able to check that box. Also, in case you're curious, even though other banks often let you reallocate limits after you apply or after you upgrade, that's seemingly not the case for Capital One. If you're shifting limits for that upgrade to work to meet that threshold, you can't just shift it back afterwards. If you are going for upgrades, check the View Offers and Upgrade tab. Capital One is a bit weird where they generally don't let you upgrade unless you're targeted. Note that for these upgrades, they almost always never include upgrade bonuses. It's the right to upgrade to the new card, and that's it. One of the other weird quirks of Capital One is that you might not actually have the chance to upgrade even if you have had the card for a long time. Also, upgrade offers can disappear, and that's just a thing that they do. This leads into the next one, which is downgrades. So going from a higher annual fee card to a lower or no annual fee option. This one's also a bit weird. Capital One will give you options, but you're limited by the options that they have selected. So even though they're in the same family of cards, you might not be able to downgrade to the one you want. The next part might piss you off. You might also have no downgrade options, which is super frustrating. I'm not sure if this is a technical thing or something left over from before, but it's not ideal. Speaking of upgrades and downgrades, annual fee refunds are also a bit wonky. Let's say you had the card for a year and you don't want it anymore. If you cancel between 0 and 30 days after the annual fee hits, you should get a full refund, and that's fine. There are data points going up to 39 or 40 days, but that's more hit or miss. After that, you're generally out of luck. Also, if you do cancel before the annual fee hits, then you're fine. If on the other hand, it's them closing the account instead of you, then generally you don't get a refund. So for example, for bust out risk or credit cycling. If you're downgrading instead of canceling, you'd want to do it 30 to 60 days before the anniversary to avoid the next annual fee hitting. Unlike other issuers, after the annual fee hits, you're typically not getting a refund. With that said, that's also not guaranteed. There are some data points of prorated refunds from 2 years ago. As you can tell, your mileage may vary. Annual fees for upgrades are even less consistent, and it can happen a few months later. What makes the most sense is to time it around the anniversary. Given all of this, there's two paths. Number one is to go for the bigger intro bonus and downgrade or cancel if needed. For normal people with normal spend, intro bonuses offer outsized value. Option 2 is to apply for the cards that you want in the long term. For a lot of people, this ends up being the Capital One Venture X Rewards credit card or the Capital One Saver Cash Rewards credit card. The latter being one of the stronger earners out there, especially if you are looking for a catch-all for things like grocery stores, dining, and harder categories like entertainment. On a side note, if you want to learn more about cards and you want to support the channel, we have links on the website, AskSebby.com, and also down below in the description box. Make sure the links are competitive, that they make sense, but otherwise it's a huge way to support the channel, so thank you in advance. If you are applying for the cards, know that Capital One does triple pulls. In the long term, not a big deal, but in the short run, people don't like it. Note that this is for the core cards, and for the co-branded ones, it can be different. There are some data points that you can freeze one of them and still be fine, but I wouldn't really mess with this. So you can potentially freeze TransUnion or Experian, but not Equifax. By their terms though, if one is frozen, you might not be eligible for the intro bonus. If you are going for it, I'd rather just take the hit and keep them unfrozen. The goal is to add a useful tool and get an intro bonus. In the long run, the inquiries fall off anyways. If you are trying to add a bunch of their cards, know that you are limited to one card every 6 months. This isn't a formal rule, and sometimes it's less than 6 months. So there are some data points on 4 months and even 3 months, but for the most part, for most people, it's generally 6. I'd probably just wait and keep it simple and assume it's 6. Okay, so if we shift over from approved cards to applications, it's once every 30 days. So let's say you apply for something, they reject you, and you end up paying down one of your other cards a week later, and you want to apply again. In their terms, they mention not being eligible if you have applied for a Capital One credit card 2 or more times in the last 30 days. Shoot your shot, but wait 30 days. While we're down to the terms and conditions, they do have some other application rules. A lot of these are standard and pretty fair. So for example, if you're past due on one of their cards, if you're over the credit line on a card, if you have a charge off within the past year for one of their cards, or a non-discharged bankruptcy. Other issuers might not say this stuff explicitly, but they have similar policies, and it goes into their approval algorithms. One of the more frustrating things about Capital One is that they're pretty new account sensitive. They don't have a set rule like 524, but sometimes it feels like it. The tough thing is that there's not a hard rule, and it often feels like a crap shot. There are some suggestions based off data points, but it's very your mileage may vary. The general strategy is to have less than 3 or 4 new cards in the last 24 months. At the same time, they're having people approved with more than that, and people rejected with less. It depends on your situation, and I don't know what to say here. Okay, so if you are building out a portfolio of their cards, then note that there are caps based off the type of cards. This isn't published, but for the starter set, you're generally limited to 2 cards. I'll put some examples on the screen, but think secured cards, student cards, and credit builder and repair ones. Not a big deal here. Going up a level to the core cards, you're typically limited to 5. This can vary, for some people it's 5, for others it's 4 or 3. This includes their prime and travel cards, and generally the more competitive and useful ones. I'd argue that for most people, you only really need 2. So that's for their cards, but for co-branded cards, there usually isn't a cap. So co-branded ones don't have a limit, and they also don't count towards the 2 or 5 card limit for the first 2 we talked about. At the same time, these cards aren't the most interesting unless you care about a store perk or some membership stuff. It feels pretty niche, and I usually don't like store cards. On the business end, there doesn't seem to be a cap. There is one exception though, and that's charge cards. You can only have one Capital One business charge card at a time. For example, if you have the Capital One Spark Cash Plus, then you can't have the Capital One Venture X Business if you're the primary cardholder on both. Outside of this, feel free to add any business cards you want. Note that the 1 card every 6 months rule still applies. This is shared between personal and business cards. For example, if you get approved for a personal card 30 days ago, then don't expect to get approved for a business one today. Also a reminder that most of their business cards do post to your personal credit report. So if you do have higher utilization for your business, this might be a reason to skip Capital One business cards. The exception being the charge cards, so if you have high spend, then go for those instead. Outside of utilization, this can also matter for other rules from other issuers. For example, the non-charge cards would take up a slot for 524 and potentially cost you another intro bonus. Overall, a bit of a mixed bag and one of the more confusing set of rules. At the same time, they do have pretty competitive cards for everyday spending like groceries and dining and entertainment, and also travel and catch-all cards. Also great for people that want a premium credit card but don't want to deal with a ton of lifestyle credits. If you're debating the card, make sure that it makes sense and that you come out ahead for your situation. Calculator down below or search Venture X worth it AskSebby. Again, if you want to learn about cards, we have links on the website AskSebby.com and also down below in the description box. If you made it to this point, leave a boomerang emoji in the comments down below and I'll try to heart it and also respond. 3 questions. Number 1, what are your thoughts on the rules? Number 2, which Capital One cards are on your list to go for? And number 3, what would be your long-term Capital One setup? Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favorite, thumbs up, share this, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time.